was very hard and very contentious in both the fandom.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And in the writer's room, but I want to ask if once the decision was made, was there any further discussion about the implications of having a professed Nazi collaborator kill her? Was that considered at all?
I'm sorry, who not kill her?
One of the characters in the show, in an earlier scene, had just confessed to Dean that he had helped work with Nazis, and then he went and killed Charlie. Was that ever brought up in discussion?
Well, the stories get worked out, especially with those that are near the end of the season, where we really lay out the storylines, and that's kind of a group effort. I can tell you that the discussion about Charlie was long and involved. There was some people in the room who didn't want to kill her. There were others who so it was really hashed out. It was not done for any effect of a shock value. It's really where the story took us. We're kind of proud of the fact that so many people cared about that we did our job in presenting that character. I'm not sure I quite understand the connection that you're making, but we felt that story had a logical progression to it, and and the fact that everybody missed Charlie so much really kind of told us we were doing our job correctly. So.
Hello. Thank you for being here. This is a really cool, unique opportunity. I wanted to ask about, for all the conventions that we've come to, the fan base is so unique and super diverse. It crosses different generations. What do you think it is about Supernatural that is sort of that unifying thing that brings all of these different people together?
That's a great question. I think, and this is just my opinion, that the show has always had a lot of heart, and that the core relationship between the brothers was always first and foremost whenever we were laying out the stories. Eric Kripke used to like to say, we did a panel years ago, and one of the things that was asked was, what was your favorite scene to date? This is a number of years ago. And I said it was in Faith, and it was the last scene in Faith when the woman who was dying of cancer, Dean says, well, I'll pray for you. And she said, you see, that's a miracle right there. Eric said his favorite scene was when we stuck somebody's hand down a sinkerator. And so what Eric said, what made the show work is that I would do less sinkerator scenes and he would do less heart scenes, and that together we kind of formed this thing that seemed to work. But he was very cognizant of that. The core relationship between the brothers was really what's at the heart of the show. And the rest is just kind of good storytelling that allows them to be the characters that you all come to love.
Hi.
I think I want to walk around a little bit.
So in the spring, I sat in on a television producers conference with a panel which had a CW VP exec of current programming, who said that they were interested at the CW in planning for diversity and citing important successes like the 100 for the diverse cast. So now that you've killed off Kevin in season 9, Charlie in season 10, and now Hannah in season 11, some of your most beloved characters who also provided some vitally needed diversity in your show in terms of both race, sexuality, and gender. How are you guys planning to account for the show's diversity needs going into season 11 and beyond?
We're pretty aware of diversity when we come up with these ideas for characters and what purpose they're going to serve in the overall story. Speaking of Charlie, the idea of Charlie was that we wanted to have a gay character that was not defined by her sexuality. She was just a gay character. So we look for diversity all the time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the diverse character is not going to meet a terrible fate. And I think that's part and parcel of the show. If every character that you all fell in love with you knew that while that character was just going to go on, that character was never in any real danger. I'm not sure that you guys would watch the show as avidly as you do, because there's always that tension with who died. Having said that, we always say nobody really dies on Supernatural. Bobby's come back a number of times. Kevin's ghost. Depending on her schedule and our story needs, I wouldn't rule out Charlie coming back in some fashion. Yes.
Hi. So at the very end of season 4, when...
I can't remember that.
Okay, so I'll just kind of set the scene. When Sam and Dean stab Ruby with the demon blade, and then flash forward to the first episode of season 5 when you bring back Meg Masters. If they stabbed Ruby with the demon blade, why did they assume Meg was Ruby?
I don't think they did assume that.
Because when Meg came back and she said, "Remember me," Dean said, "Oh, you're Ruby," and she said, "No." So if they killed her, why did they assume Meg was Ruby?
Yeah, I really don't remember that. I don't doubt you. There may have been a slip of the tongue by a writer, but we always, thought Ruby was Ruby and Meg was Meg. So I can't help you. Sorry.
Right.
Hi.
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 My question is, at the end of Inside Man, in season 10, we saw 3 angels come into Bobby's heaven, and then it ended. Are we going to find out what happened to Bobby?
Well, the implication is that that Bobby was going to be taken to a place that, the way we had structured heaven, and we said this kind of early on, is that everyone's heaven was their own happy place, although sort of in isolation. But for Bobby, it was a really good scotch and good books and a comfortable place. When he stepped out of that place and helped the guys and was then picked up by angels, they weren't taking him back to his happy place. So we may do an episode that shows that, but basically Bobby sacrificed his nice heaven to help the guys. So he's probably not in the... We've seen Heaven's jails, what they look like, and it probably looks like that for Bobby.
Aww.
I'm sorry. It's just television.
Hi.
Oops.
I wanted to ask about the Reapers. In the early seasons, nobody could see them unless they were dying. And now they seem very visible to a lot of people. I was just wondering, did they all go get vessels when the world looked like it was ending and they figured humans might be in short supply?
No, the Reapers are always there. The Reapers, even through all the apocalyptic stuff and the angels falling and all that, the Reapers are sort of a separate thing. So they've always been there. Yes, you're right. When somebody's dying, then they sort of reveal themselves. But I think you're talking about when Sam met the Reaper and she was singing "Oh God" in the hallways.
Among other episodes, yeah.
Yeah. They can appear. They can show themselves if they want, and especially since she had a message for Sam. So it's really up to the Reapers, when they reveal themselves. It's not so much...
Well, then how could Dean kill Tessa?
Well, you kill a Reaper there.
Well, it was just like he walked up to Tessa and was like, "You better come with me to the Angel Garrison," and so I was just like, couldn't she have gone invisible from Dean?
Oops.
Boy, you guys are tough.
I'm sorry, Richard told us to ask you hard questions.
Okay, I'll talk to him later. No, we never thought that. I mean, that Reapers could be killed. Reapers are these sort of sentient beings. It wouldn't have been as dramatic if she just disappeared. I can tell you a story that just helped us in terms of how writing goes. Years ago, I asked Walter Hill, who was the writer on Getaway, the original Getaway, and I said, why did Steve McQueen go to that hotel, which was at the end of the movie, where he knew that was the mob hotel? And Walter Hill, who's a big screenwriter, director, looked at me incredulously and he said, Bob, that's where the shootout is. So, so sometimes we have to do that. Sometimes we have to have a shootout.
Hi, I was wondering, for the Mark of Cain, since the Mark of Cain is transferable, whether Dean would be able to, give it to another person for a certain amount of time and they keep switching back and forth, whether that would push off the side effects or whether that would just make it worse.
Dean would have to find, I mean, I assume you saw the episode where he lost the Mark King? Okay. If, and that had a lot of hocus pocus to it, and spell work and all that. If Dean had retained the mark and he wanted to get rid of the mark, he would have to find someone in the way that Cain found him who could actually be receptive to the mark, and that would take someone of Dean Winchester's bravery and stature and mental deficiency. Well, who takes that on? I mean, it's very heroic, but not the smartest thing he ever did. So no, you just can't say, all right, I'm just going to give it to somebody else and get rid of it and then say I want it back. It didn't work that way, no.
Hi, my question is about demons, and I'm wondering if there's any significance to the different colors that we see with them. Early on, we learned that demons show themselves with black eyes unless they're crossroad demons, and then we see red. However, with Lilith, we see white eyes, and then with Crowley, he has black within the red. So I'm just wondering if there's any significance to that in the color of their smoke.
It's kind of it's like a rank in the service. Your ordinary demons have black eyes, and then as you sort of go up the ladder, it's sort of it's like if you were in the army, it was like bars on your shoulder or something like that. And we always wanted, when we did that, we sort of wanted to differentiate of sort of the different power that any particular demon might have, and obviously Lilith had enormous power. So that's the reason for the different colored eyes. It's just a ranking system.
In season 1, I think it's episode 4, there's a demon that's crashing planes.
I directed that. That was my first directed episode.
And the boys use Christo to detect the demon, and after that episode, it's never used again. Was there a reason for that, or?
Well, I mean, in that episode, it was, they're searching. Normally, they're not exactly searching for, a plane full of people. So they wanted to try to identify who the demon was. That episode, we also thought that that was like the first episode where we tried to combine humor with danger and kind of to see how that worked. And David Nutter, who directed the pilot, called me after that one aired and said, I think the show turned a corner last night. And we found that the guys could really handle comedy, but that the danger was real. As far as the Christo scene, when Eric and I talked about that, we actually thought it was, kind of funny to have Dean kind of, Christo? So, that was a story point for that particular episode, and then we didn't feel that, subsequent episodes gave us that exact situation where they would do that, so that's why it hasn't happened since. You're doing all right. Yeah, because I'd love to come back. So. Thank you. Thank you.
So,
Yes.
as a man with numerous years of experience, you've worked with actors and film crew from many different walks of life. I'm wondering, do you recommend going to a school, like a college for film, or trying to get your hands dirty in the field?
Are you talking about acting or working as a writer or producer or director?
Directing or acting?
Directing is, yeah, it's... Most directors I know, I mean, there's sort of many different paths into it. You know, mine came, I started as a production assistant, basically a runner, and worked my way up and became an associate producer and then a producer, and then was in a position to give myself a job as a director, so that's one path. School certainly is helpful if you can make a student film that you can get, you know, people to look at and see. All the studios now have kind of these director programs where they encourage young directors to come in and submit their work, and they put them through a program. Richard Speight actually went through the Warner Brothers program. He did a wonderful short film called America 101. And I recommended Richard for the Warner Brothers program, which he did, and you know, and Richard just got through directing his first episode for us, so. Which is quite good, by the way. He did a great job. So, you know, I mean, there's lots of different paths. Writers tend to, I mean, you know, I started writing before I started directing, and, you know, and then you sort of give the project over to a director, and it wasn't exactly the way I had sort of seen it in my head, and I sort of said, well, I think I want to start doing my own stuff. So there's lots of different ways, but there's a lot of disappointments along the way, but, you know, like anything in our business, it's just kind of just keep plugging ahead. Don't let rejection or adversity stop you. You just got to keep just plugging, and, you know, good things can happen.
Thank you.
There was a question earlier at the convention that one of the actors was not able to answer. I was hoping you could answer it. It was, what happens to angels when they die?
When they die? Yeah. You know, we've never really explored that. I mean, we talked about it and talked about it in terms of, you know, how that would help us in a story, or if that question ever came up, what do we think? So we've bandied some ideas around, but never landed on anything. You know, the two answers we've come up with is, well, they just sort of turn to dust or nothingness. The other is that their angel soul will return to heaven. You know, they're basically inhabiting vessels. So it's possible. I mean, it's not something that we've ever written about, but it's certainly possible that their soul can return to heaven and then come back in another vessel. That wouldn't be out of the question.
First of all, I can't believe I'm talking to you. I'm so inspired. But I'm currently a senior in college, and I'm studying video production. And you kind of answered the question, but do you have any other advice, or is there someone that inspired you from when you first started?
As far as directing goes, you know, I think that's every generation of directors is inspired by some directors that came before them. You know, you want to attain your own individual style, but surely you would look at films or TV shows and sort of mark which directors have made an impact on you. I know I have, and you know, and some of them are contemporaries, directors that I worked with before I started directing in television. Bob Butler, who directed everything from the Batman pilot to the Hill Street Blues pilot. Thomas Carter, who directed the Miami Vice pilot. I learned an awful. I produced shows that they directed and learned an awful lot from them. So what I would say is, you know, see as many movies as you can, watch them over again. My wife always says to me, you know, she'll come downstairs and I'm watching a movie that she knows I've seen 10 times. She goes, "Why are you watching this again?" I go, "Well, I'm learning." So I think there's a continual learning process in directing. So when you do get your shot, you walk on that set and you have you know what you want. You know what you want it to look like. You've run that movie in your head. You know, because you have a crew of 75 people. You walk on the set the first day, you got 75 people looking at you going, okay, what do we do? And if you can instill confidence in the cast and the crew, they'll work really hard for you. And, you know, so preparation, preparation, preparation. And before you direct, I think a lot of the preparation can come with just watching good film and, you know, being inspired by other directors.
Thank you.
Long.